CCP recently opened up the Eve test server in advance of the Catalyst expansion, so let's see what they showed us. Hey there, Croven here for the Drone Bay. In a previous video, I gave a brief overview of some of the changes coming in the next expansion to EVE Online, Catalyst. At that time, we were limited to a few stat blocks that the devs had decided to post. Last weekend, though, we were able to log on to Singularity and do a little more digging. One major caveat before we continue. All of the stats I'm going to show you are subject to change before Catalyst launches on November 18th. We're going to get a good idea of what CCP is trying to do with the changes in new ships, but everything is subject to tweaking. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. I am not going to bury the lead this time, at least not entirely, so let's start off with one of the new ships, the Pioneer. The Pioneer is a mining ship on a destroyer platform meant to be a midpoint between a venture and a mining barge. Unlike the barge, these will be able to be flown by alphas. CCP will also be giving one out as a reward for what they're calling a brief epic arc. While the actual Pioneer ships were not available on the test server, they did show us the stats, so let's stack it up with the Venture, which, at the time the test server was open, did not have any changes. In terms of normal mining, the Pioneer with max skills is a straight-up upgrade. While the Pioneer's roll bonus to lasers is 50% compared to the 100% of the Venture, it has a better bonus per skill level and a third turret hardpoint, meaning you can bring an extra laser. That third laser means more of the new mining crits. It also packs a larger drone bay and bandwidth. For a lot of players, especially newer pilots, the Pioneer should offer additional income and more minerals coming to market. These are both good things, in my opinion. Where things get trickier is when it comes to huffing gas. I've recently committed to spending a lot of my off-contract time with Noir in wormholes, so gas mining is very relevant to me. The short version is that the Pioneer gets the same yield as a Venture or a Prospect when scooping gas. When I first looked at the stats, I thought it was going to mine more gas than the Venture, but after hanging out in Chlorokin's stream and having him explain the math to me afterward, it turns out that the total yield is a wash. Suetonia, aka CCP Kestrel, confirmed that this is the case. This is a little disappointing. I understand the idea of not making the prospect obsolete, but I think something along the lines of increased yield but worse cargo might have been enough to balance it. Also, the fact that it's not any better than a Venture doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The mining math is the same for the Pioneer Consortium issue. Its bonuses are to shield boosters and mining hold capacity. Now, that mining hold bonus could be nice if you're only running one or two accounts, but it's hard to say whether that upgrade will be worth it without knowing how much the ships are going to cost to actually obtain. It's also worth noting that the Consortium Venture also gets a mining hold bonus along with the +2 warp core stabilization and other advantages of the T1 Venture. Both the Consortium Pioneer and Venture get a 50% bonus to crit mining chance, so again, a significant upgrade for traditional mining. The Pioneer also gets a bonus to salvage drones, giving it a use outside of traditional mining, so there are definitely use cases for them, depending on the cost. The Command Destroyer version of the Pioneer, the Outrider, does offer some tasty bonuses for both gas and ore miners. The Outrider gives you a bonus to mining foreman boosts as well as shield boosts. It also gets a bonus to its own mining, except for gas, drone hit point and damage bonuses, and shield resists. It comes with a 100 cubic meter drone bay and a pretty spacious 20,000 cubic meter mining hold, both of which provide for some nice utility. It's also going to be a lot more agile than something like a Porpoise while on grid with the mining ships. For gas huffers, the Outrider also presents an upgrade. Right now, a pretty common multi-box setup for gas is multiple prospects with a command destroyer running mining foreman and skirmish boosts. Better boosts means more gas, and a larger mining hold means a little more time on the cloud before having to unload. The Outrider can also fit scoops of its own, which is significant. Often, bringing a boosting ship only makes sense once you reach a critical mass of miners. While that is still true, the Outrider's own contributions could make it worthwhile with fewer other miners. I don't know exactly what the math is, I'm not great at math, but it's better math than a Magus or a Bifrost. While the Pioneer hulls will represent an overall boost for most miners, I do kind of wish us gas huffers would have gotten a little more love. We should also touch more on the changes to mining mechanics. CCP has already told us that they'll be making mining more dynamic. The primary way they're going to go about this is by cutting both mining cycle yield and cycle time to a quarter of their current values. This means 4 times the cycles with the same yield. Where that cycle time can make a big difference is with the addition of critical hits to mining. Let's look at a Miner 2, for example, since the base math is pretty easy. Without skill or ship modifications, a Miner 2 currently pulls 60 cubic meters with a 1-minute cycle. On the test server, it was 15 cubic meters in 15 seconds, so 1 cubic meter per second in both cases. The Miner 2 also comes with a base critical chance of 1% with a 200% yield bonus to the cycle when you do crit. CCP also showed us some of the ways they intend to boost both that crit rate and yield. First, let's take a look at two new skills. Mining Precision gives a 10% crit chance increase per level trained, so at max with no other bonuses, 1.5% instead of 1%. Mining Bonanza Exploitation, which is a pretty funny name that may not be permanent, gives a 5% bonus to crit yield per level. Precision can be learned by alphas and trains at a 2 times multiplier. Bonanza Exploitation, seriously, CCP, please leave that name, is not available to alphas and trains at a 6-time multiplier. There are a couple of modules that'll also be buffing mining crits, but they do have something to offer gas huffers as well, reduced residue. The mining equipment efficiency charge for the mining foreman burst will do this, as will what used to be survey scanners. Remember, ships can now inherently gather some of the info that survey scanners used to provide. Now these modules have been renamed mining sensor arrays. These arrays now provide an aura buff to nearby mining ships, not unlike a command boost. The exact range wasn't listed on the test server, at least not that I could find, but we do know that the Outrider doubles it. Within that range, mining lasers will get a boost to crit chance and yield, and there will be a reduction in mining residue. These range from 12% at Tech 1 to 20% at Tech 2. Bringing one of these along in a mining fleet was already pretty common practice, but now it's going to give you more than quality of life information. It's also going to actively make your ships more efficient. Good stuff. Now let's move on to one of the new things we're going to be mining, Prismaticite. This was put first and foremost in the expansion announcement, and it introduces a number of new mechanics. To mine Prismaticite, you need to do a few things. First, you need to locate a phased field, then you deploy a mobile phase anchor. One thing I did find really cool about this whole implementation process is that CCP has built user manuals for some of the new processes in the show info screen. A lot of things in EVE are pretty unintuitive and kind of arcane to understand, and I understand why. The game's been around for over 20 years. But the fact that they're making a significant effort to demystify these things for new players or players who will only experience this in the future is a good thing. So let's take a look at the instructions for mining these phased asteroids. To drop a mobile phase anchor, you need some combination of industrial command ships. It takes 100 energy to anchor one. Each of the ships provides a different amount. A Porpoise gives you 35 energy, an Orca 50, and a Rorqual all 100. Once anchored, the phased asteroids will drift through the anchored field. While outside of the field, you mine them at 10% efficiency. That goes back to 100% efficiency while they're in phase. And when you do mine these asteroids, what you get is prismaticite. At base, this ore will refine randomly into one of the existing mineral types. The amount you get is also random, but is bounded by a minimum and maximum range depending on what the mineral is. Now, you can control what you're getting, but you need to use a reaction to do it, and it seemed to be mostly R4 moon goo. Oh, and there is also a new skill for refining the unrefined ore that you get from these reactions. While I am by no means much of a miner, my gut reaction is this suite of changes and additions, including the return of Amber and Kernite to HiSec, is going to put supply pressure on the market, which should result in lower mineral prices, especially when you consider things like isogen. Now that the mining talk is over, let's get to the ship that has the wormholer in me very intrigued, the Odysseus. I also went over some of the basics of this ship in my first video, but the test server let me get a look at the in-game model as well as some of the other details that hadn't been included in the original post. First off, I love the way the Odysseus looks. I also love the idea behind what I think CCP is trying to do with it. Outside of large-scale gas huffing, it could easily serve as a sort of home base for a Nomad setup, even or perhaps especially for a solo player. The laundry list of buffs to things that wormhole nomads and day trippers want is great. Better probes, better hacking, gas mining, combat buffs, and the ability to carry your loot back to known space. All great stuff. It can use a covert ops cloak, has a huge 50,000 cubic meter exploration bay, a 75,000 cubic meter ship maintenance bay, and a little bit of a fleet hangar for refits and the like. The ability to use a 0 point mass entangler makes it hard to roll yourself out of a hole. The exploration bay and reduction to scoop CPU usage means you can solo huff gas with it. And the combat bonuses in heavy drones mean you should be able to run low class combat anomalies without too much of an issue. Most of the expedition command bursts struck me as a little bit underwhelming on first glance because of how little of exploration happens in group settings, but it's entirely possible I'm missing something here. Some of the bursts, like better probing and D-scan range, could be cool in wormholes if you could use them while cloaked, but I haven't seen any indication that that'll be the case. Again, they didn't let us actually fly this ship, but we could look at the in-game stats. Now, this ship is absolutely the sort of thing I would love to have, but I'm not sure if I will, because the cost of one of these is going to be immense compared to the alternatives and to other Sisters of Eve ships. I know I said this at the beginning of the video, but I want to repeat it here. These are not necessarily final numbers, and in this case, I really hope they're not. I got some sticker shock looking at the materials cost of this thing. Copy pasting materials into the Janus appraisal website returned a cost of 1.7 billion ISK. For comparison, the Alligator and Kisriel cost around 600 million ISK on the market, and the Nestor, the battleship, is about a billion. This ship deserves to be flown, but if the cost is over 1.5 bill plus whatever the blueprint costs, I don't see there being an enormous adoption rate. I really do hope these numbers are placeholders because I want to see these things out in space. I want to fly one. I want to kill them. Time will tell, I suppose. Now, as of the open period on the test server, we hadn't yet seen, at least I don't think we had seen the carrier updates, but I maintain hope that one day I might be able to use a Thanatos as something other than a glorified delivery van. And perhaps it's the nature of how I play, but overall, it feels odd that the amount of things we've been shown so far amounts to an expansion. But I could be wrong. Lots of people mine it's one of the biggest backbones of the EVE economy. And there could be real economic impacts from the mining changes and new ships, so maybe I'm selling it short. For Wormhole folks, we are getting the Outrider and the currently very expensive Odysseus, but the Pioneer feels a bit eh. Still, new stuff is almost always good, and I'm looking forward to trying out the new stuff on Tranquility. What about you? How do you feel about Catalyst so far? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, I'd really appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribed to the channel. If you want to see one of the tools I use to make billions of ISK per month, click on the video on screen now, and until next time, keep flying.